up, everybody? Hey. Yeah, I'll kick us off here and explain what we're doing. This is a very special episode of After Impact, live as always. We are in honor of International Women's Day. We are doing an all-female cast today to discuss none other than Amelia Boone. And we have one of our castmates there off camera who will be reading the questions, which is Casey.
Just in there.
So yeah, this really is going to be an all-female version. Even Wookie is a lovely young lady. So super excited to have you guys do it. Very glad that you guys were champs and ready to dive in.
It's weird sitting in your seat.
Yeah?
Yeah, it feels
It's kind of weird.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it's amazing. So I'm going to be bumming out, but before I go, I want to ask the first question.
Ooh, all right.
Okay.
You ready?
Wookie's ready.
What was it about Amelia Boone that surprised you the most? All right, while you think about that, I will step out. Enjoy the show, everybody. Make sure you send in your questions, Facebook Live. We want to know what you guys
have to say. So welcome. This is a very special day. We're super excited. We've never been in the,
Yeah, the two of us haven't ever done anything like this.
Yeah. So first of all, we're wearing red, as much red as we possibly can.
I, unfortunately don't own much red. I mostly wear dark colors, so oxblood it is.
Oxblood. Okay, so Amelia Boone, the thing that surprised me the most, I think just having the dynamics of being a tough woman, being sweet, intellectual. I didn't expect that from her because the stuff that I knew about her, she was just a badass. Mm-hmm. And so kind of watching the discussion between her and Tom and what they were kind of, how deep they were going and how realistic she could be about being a woman and what she was capable of. I was super impressed with that.
I loved her vulnerability in, all of it. Just talking about, the issues and the struggles that she went through. I think the thing that most surprised me, or I guess, maybe most resonated with me, was the fact that she talked about how after her injury and, she couldn't do both, Spartan racing and training and being a lawyer, how it kind of dampened her productivity a little bit on the law side because it's now she has all this extra time. And so it totally brought me back to the times when I used to have jam-packed schedules where it was nonstop going all the time, and it was probably the most productive I was.
Because it was
just jam-packed, and it was well, I have to finish it by this time and be ready by this time and go. And it was just I totally get that. That idea of juggling multiple things at the same time and using that to your advantage.
Yeah, for sure.
So it was cool to hear that from both high elite ends where it's she's a power attorney and also this powerful racer.
I actually found that really interesting in the interview. And if you guys haven't seen it, you should definitely go check it out. It is one of my personal favorites. I admire her so much. She's a badass. But like you said, she's also an attorney. And what I found interesting was when people said, what's her identity? Mm-hmm. And it almost changes depending on who you're around.
Right.
And I'm so curious on how many other women do that, right? If you're around your other female friends, does your identity alter or change then compared to if you're around a bunch of guys, or if you're at work, or if you're with your kids or your family? I don't know, how much of does your identity matter depending on who you're with? So, I'm going to propose the question to you. Does your identity...
I feel I've always thought of identity as, super fluid in that way because, it is true, depending on the context, you fulfill a different role. So, I'm the oldest of 4. So, in my family, I'm always the person kind of, trying to, run everything and, solve everybody's problems and, be the liaison between my parents and my siblings and all of that kind of stuff. But then, when I'm with my friends, I'm not necessarily always the person, trying to organize things and, plan everything for everybody.
So do you think that you're not the responsible one when you're with people your age versus when you're in a situation with your family?
It depends. So it's I guess maybe with my friends a little bit more, I'm sometimes a person who's the calculated risk taker, if you will. Mm-hmm. So it's I'm definitely like more fun and spontaneous, and I don't always have to like be in that responsible role. Even if like in the back of my mind, I'm still like, this is probably not a great idea, but like, you know, it's just like a little bit different in terms of that, I guess, because it's like you're fulfilling like a different dynamic.
Right.
So it's like, I feel like people who knew me in college, they used to think like, oh, like there's no way that she has siblings and whatever, because she's so like carefree and like whatever. And it's funny because, you know, like at home, my sister still thinks like, oh, but you're so responsible. I'm like, no, like I feel like I'm being really irresponsible right now, but I don't know. It's, I guess it also depends on who's looking.
Yeah, and I'm very much the same. But mostly for me, I think it depends on if I'm around my husband Tom, as you guys know him, or if I'm around, like if I'm in a role of being the boss within the company.
Right.
It's very different than if I'm around even Tom in the company, because we've spoken about this publicly before, but we came up with really kind of defined roles within our marriage and then within the company business. So to me, he is the CEO of the company, and so if he puts his foot down, then that is the role that we have decided for him to play, and then for me to play the president role. So I do adapt and adjust depending on the situation.
Right.
But I think as an overall identity, like if somebody asked me what I did, I don't think that would alter much. So,
yeah,
like the difference between identity and behavior, I think is like there's a big difference there as well.
But I think it's because she kind of has like two professions.
Yes.
Like I think that's the difference, because like in terms of behavior, absolutely, like you'll migrate and navigate the way you see fit. But like the fact is, like if she's like in a room full of people who are all like other obstacle racers or like know her as an athlete, like she's probably going to be more inclined to introduce herself as an athlete because that's like what they expect of her.
Yeah.
So the attorney part of it is like almost like a secondary afterthought. But like in like Apple, like they don't know her as Amelia Boone, the like Spartan racer.
Right.
So it's, yeah, I think it's because like she kind of has like these two very solid like professions.
Yeah. And I actually wonder, so I don't have children, but I wonder out there, all the mothers who also work, have a specific profession. Do you guys identify with being a professional when you're at work and then a mother at home? Or is there like a kind of, like an overlap? I don't know, because I don't have children. So I'd love to hear from you guys at home on what you think and, yeah.
Yeah, I don't have kids either, so I'm not.
All right,
really,
let's hear from all you mothers out there.
Not quite sure.
In fact, my friend Nicole, who's probably watching right now in England, working mother, I want to hear from you. What is your opinion? All right. So she talks a lot about fear. Mm-hmm. She says basically for her, if something is fearful, then you actually need to do it. Mm-hmm. I've heard Tom talk about that a lot. We talk about that here at Impact Theory. Do you think that's universal? Like, do you think that everybody should face their fear? Whether you're a woman or a man?
I mean, I kind of live by that guiding light. Like, in terms of all the times I've had the most fun or like learned the most or grown the most, it's always been like something that like may have been like a little nerve-wracking at first, or it's like, oh, that's probably not the best idea, or like someone told me no and I was like, well, I'm gonna do it anyway, because I'm also like a little bit stubborn and rebellious in that kind of way. Me, no way. Yeah, so it's like, just the same way that like I have 3 tattoos now, and my parents, I know. So I have 3 tattoos, and my first one I got, and like my parents never knew about it, like ever, until I moved like home, and I was there for a while, and then one day my mom stumbled upon it because I was like, oh, something like hurts, and like I lifted up my shirt, and it was like right there, and she's like, what's that? Yeah. It's like, and I'm not sure if my dad knows about that one, but now he knows about these.
But did you get it because you feared?
So it's like, I didn't fear necessarily getting the tattoo, but like a lot of people say like your first tattoo is going to hurt the most. And also like the most painful places are places that are kind of like not fatty. So like your ribs are supposed to hurt the most. So my first tattoo was on my ribs, and it's like on the smaller side, But like even laying there on the table, like I went with my friend and it like didn't actually hurt.
Right.
So it's like I realized for myself that physical pain isn't really something to fear. Like I've never been afraid of needles and shots and like things like that.
Because she actually talks about that, the mind over the body.
Right.
So when the body's fearing something, like it's in pain, that you can tell yourself in your mind, like she says that she talks to her body. And so like if she's got a bad knee, right, she was talking to her knee saying, come on knee, you can do it, right? Like almost coaching it through. And I think that's really interesting with women specifically. Maybe she even says, maybe it's because of childbirth.
Yeah.
But once you kind of experience the pain, you're like, oh, maybe
Yeah,
not so
it's
bad.
like it wasn't bad. And then like the artist, like halfway through, he was just like, so like I don't usually say this, but like it's really weird. Like you're not in pain right now because like he's seen like grown ass men like fucking squirming, like stop, like whatever. And I was just like laying there. I almost took a nap, and like it was kind of weird. But like emotional pain, like that hits me so hard. Like, and that's always been like the case. Like, so I don't know what that is either.
That's actually really interesting because it's almost the reverse for guys. Right? They, typically, and this has been very stereotypical, but typically men can't take physical pain, right? It's like they stub their foot on something and it's, oh my God, I'm in agony. A woman does it, kind of brushes her foot and then walks on. But emotional, I actually think it's the opposite, right? Women handle emotional punches to the face much harder than men. And I'm curious, like, do you think it's because of just stereotypes and people saying, because you're a man, you can't take emotion, you have to, like, man up? Like, I actually hate that. I hate that we kind of put men and women on the spectrum of physical and mental pain, because if you're in pain, you're in pain. Like, if something actually hurts, I don't like him who's like, oh, you're worse, stop being a woman, right? Like, why is that being a woman? I don't understand why. But then also, if you're feeling that pain, regardless if you're a man or a woman, like I think the brushing that aside is kind of insensitive.
Yeah.
So,
no, it's
Her refrain is ringing in saying that she totally relates, Cindy, with what you're saying. Her first tattoo wasn't that bad, but emotional pain really rocks her as well. She thanks you guys for validating her experience. And then Joe Cross wants to know something that Casey's going to tell you all about.
Come on, Casey.
Casey.
Yes, Joe Cross. He says, Amelia spoke about how she didn't really use cold therapy. She likes her hot showers. But withstanding cold is definitely a part of her game. How do you decide what skills to develop in pursuit of your goals?
Ooh. That's a good question.
That's a great question.
I guess it's a personal thing. So for me, it's what's holding me back. So if I have a goal and the benefit of being married to my business partner is he's very real and honest with me. So he'll say like, look, if you want this, you have to do this. And no matter what kind of excuse I may want to give him, he'll just call me on it. So and then looking at the people that you admire that also do it. Right? So if there's someone that is doing exactly what you want to do, I think breaking that down and looking at that person and saying, well, what skills do they have? What skills don't I have that they have? And then kind of then saying, okay, well, I need to learn this, and then prioritizing what that skill level is.
Yeah.
What about
I mean,
you?
I go from the angle of like trying it. So like no matter what it is, like you can dabble in the skill until like you figure out if this is something that you need to like go hard after. So like so I'm not a runner, and I preface this because like the day that I decided to sign up for my first half marathon, I was still in the mindset where I was like, I'm not really a runner, but at the same time, I need to do this because I feel like I've had too much trauma associated with running that I was like, I just need to get rid of that. It was just like, whatever.
So it's like hitting the fear head on.
Yeah, so it wasn't even fear. It was just the fact that, like, I hated running because every sport you play, that's your punishment. So it was like, you're having
at
a great...
school.
So it was like varsity athletics. Like, you're always running sprints. You're, like, running laps, like, whatever. And I had a lacrosse coach that literally made me, like, despise running because we ran more than we actually practiced the skills of lacrosse. And then in a game, when our skills failed, we would still run. Instead of working on those skills to get better at it, like, I was in the best shape of my life because I was playing lacrosse and volleyball in that same season. But it was one of those things where it's like, I hate running and I need to like do something about it.
Right.
And so it was actually right after I'd returned from my trip to Africa, which I'll tell you guys all about later, is that I signed up 18 days before it, and I like ran, I guess, for 15 days. Like
you signed up 18 days before you were going to do the half marathon, and you'd never practiced.
Never really. I didn't run.
Come on, that's pretty impressive.
So it's like I was like, well, I have to do it. Like I have a deadline now, so it's like
That's
I need
cool.
to get out. I need to get out and run, right? So it's like I ran, like I would jog. The most miles I ran was like 7 before I like did the half marathon, and I was like patting myself on the back. I was like, I did 7 miles, and I finished the race in like an average amount of time. So I was like, well, and that's because like I was like, I had no choice. Like I was already there.
Yeah.
Like my mom's like at the finish line or whatever with like.
So putting yourself in that situation, you knew without giving yourself a choice, it forced you to learn.
So it's like I had to learn the skill. So it's like I looked up like what half marathon trainings are, like different tips and tricks. But at the same time, it was like, I also come from a place where I know that I can push my physical body. Right. So I'm like not saying like everyone should go sign up for a race 15 days or 18 days before and like do it. I'm just like, I just know that the physical aspect of it, I can overcome because like of, previous history and like athletics.
That's it. We actually do that here at Impact Theory where we kind of give ourselves deadlines and we're so not necessarily ready for that. Take the set, right? So we booked Michael Strahan and we didn't have a set. We didn't have equipment. There was no lights. And so, but having that pressure of that deadline kind of forced us to figure out how to get it done and then figure out what skills do we have to get, or even if we don't have time to train on the skill.
It's like just do it.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I never thought about it from a physical perspective. But
yeah, so it's like, it was cool. I was like, I finished it. I was very proud of myself. And then everyone's like, oh, you're going to be super sore after. And like, you're not going to want to be able to walk. Like, you're not going to be able to walk. Yeah. And so it's like, I prepared for that. Like, I iced down my whole body, whatever. And then the next day I was at like an aerial yoga class. So it's just like, it's kind of being able to kind of prepare as much as you can and then like go after it and try it.
Amazing.
And see.
All right, we're getting
Casey's
flagged.
got
Another question. Let's hear it.
From Dan Bro Fitness.
Oh, I love Dan Bro Fitness.
What is a lesson fear has taught you? How did you overcome it?
A lesson fear has
taught you. I've got some notes here on fear.
A lesson that fear has taught me.
I think really to, kind of like Amelia, to hit it head on. Anytime I've been fearful of something, it's never, like not doing it has never served me.
Yeah.
So kind of just facing it and saying, okay, well, if I fail, that's okay, right? Accepting the failure of that. It's okay because I'm going to learn from it. Yeah.
I mean, in terms of like fear, I feel like I don't have that many because I've had a history of like always just doing them. So now it's like my fears are heights, but it's not actually heights. It's more like the fall. So like if I were to look over the edge and be dangling, like, yeah, I'm freaking out because like, you could die. But like getting up there, I've like been able to like coach myself to do that. Like, rock climbing or, just climbing tall buildings or going to rooftop parties. Like, it's again, like putting yourself in situations where the benefit of like the experience outweighs the fear.
All right, so let's take fear from a different perspective. Okay. Something you can't test. So for instance, one thing Tom and I have spoken about a lot is, do we have children or not? Now, the fear that I have is if I don't have children in 10, 20 years, God forbid something happened to my husband. But we have the very honest conversations, right? So if something happened to him and in 10 or 20 years, we don't have children and now I'm alone and I'm too old, I can't have children, what will you do then? Now, I have that fear. It's a genuine fear that I have. But there's nothing to test.
Right.
So really, for me, with that fear, I go, okay, what's the worst case scenario? The worst case scenario. Okay, I know that in 10, 20 years, God forbid, something happened, or on my deathbed, whatever, I don't have kids, I fear being alone. But is that fear worth sacrificing my decisions that I make today? Right? A possible something that could possibly happen.
Right.
Would I make a decision today to change the rest of my life because I fear what may happen? So that's something that I really kind of talk about. Tom and I discuss a lot. And with that situation, I'm not going to succumb to the fear. So I look at the worst case scenario and I say, okay, I'm okay with that. Like, it would suck. I would be obviously heartbroken. I may regret it, but I can't make a decision now based on a fear that I have that something could happen.
Right. But do you also feel that in thinking about that worst case scenario, you've already prepared yourself for it?
Yes.
In terms of like building the infrastructure around yourself to like not feel that way. Because you're not actually going to be alone. Like you have family and like friends and people who love you. So like I feel like it's in preparation for that. You'll know that like, hey, maybe I won't have as much, like have Tom, but like you'll have like those pieces that kind of hold you together.
Almost using that as a way to de-fear.
Yeah, because
like now, because if I have that fear, you're saying if you just look at the situation and have other pieces, then it can reduce the fear that I have currently.
Yeah, because like, I mean,
it's interesting.
At least
like that.
For me, sometimes that's how I think of it, where it's like whenever I'm feeling like, oh my God, like I'm so alone in this, like I always like pull upon like, no, but right now I might be by myself, but at the same time, it's like I have my sister, I have my mom, I have my dad. And if I didn't have them, I still have a lot of other people who like form this like unit that like, you know, occupies my heart, if you will.
That's actually a really cool way of thinking about it. I really like that. All right.
Yeah.
Got any other questions? All right.
All right.
So there's actually a couple of quotes that Amelia said that really resonated with me that I'd like to read out and get your opinion on. Oh, before we do that, Casey's waving us. The suspense of the quotes.
I know.
We have some comments from Anna Mina, who says, "Wow, Cindy, really unbelievable," which I think is about your half marathon.
Oh
Yeah,
I also I brought my Spartan medal because this was another one of those things where it's like I signed up for it not knowing what it like how big it was. Like, so usually people like sign up for Spartan races and they do like the small one and the medium one and then the large one to like form the trifecta. I was like, well, this one is a convenient date for me and it seems nice. And it turned out to be the one that was going to be like 14 miles. And
respect.
Yeah. So it's like I did it. I crushed it with one of my friends, Kim. She's out there somewhere. Maybe she'll see this. I'll send it to her later and give her that shout out. And so she was like, she's the one who actually told me after like I'd been like, let's sign up. She was like, you know, that's like the big one, right? Like the like 11 to 14 miler obstacles. Like it's going to be kind of cold still in Jersey. Like, what are you? I was like, oh, no, but okay.
But isn't there something to almost not knowing what you're getting yourself into?
Yeah, absolutely. Like, absolutely. And when she said, like, it gets harder every time, like, she does another one because, like, she's had previous experiences to, like, pull upon. We were going into it blind. Like, we didn't know what, like, obstacles were. Like, the fact that, like, you start the race over an obstacle. Like, you don't just, like, get onto the course and they're like, all right, go. They, like, have you jump over a giant wall as your first thing. And then you just, like, keep going with all the other obstacles all over the mountain. And then they like our race, they teased us because like we could see the finish line, but like between us and the finish line was like a monstrous hill that you still had to get up and then like do some other things.
I felt like there was more to that comment, or no?
Yeah.
There's another comment, but now there's several more comments.
All right, let's.
Okay.
Yeah. So when are you going to do your full marathon? Hell
Aw, thanks, guys.
Let's get her to do a full one.
Yeah, so that was
Just
like on my list.
don't tell her what to expect.
So that was one of those things where it's like I had all these like, you know, fitness related goals and like so they were all serving me at the time, and like I had all this extra time in terms of like training and going to gyms and being like a cross athlete, if you will. But then like after my move, like I feel like I'm still adjusting in a different way. So like even though I still have in the back of my mind that I will complete like, I think it's 3 full marathons by, I think it's 2020.
We had, you got that on camera.
I think
now.
it's 2020.
Right?
I need to like go back and look at the actual sheet that I wrote it on.
But setting yourself goals like that,
Yeah.
almost forcing you to hit them because you don't want to fail.
Yeah. So it's like one of those things where it's like I had it like set out there, and I'll do it. Like the next one I was going to do was Seawees, but I was trying to sign up for it, but my internet didn't work in Bali, and so I missed that sign up for that like half marathon in Vancouver. So it's like there will be another one. There are plenty all the time.
Yeah.
It's just now, you know, dedicating the time to like go do it, and I'll probably do some more obstacle races because they're a lot more fun to me.
Cool. Well, the one thing about Amelia, so she actually, let me finish just this one cool thing about Amelia. I've got to say it. So she basically won the world's toughest mudder 3 times.
That's crazy.
3 times. And that's competing against men and women.
Yeah.
So, and then one of them was 8 weeks after knee surgery.
Yep.
And she didn't put herself in a category of she's a man or so she's a woman and so she's not going to be able to do it. Like she was like, okay, I'm competing. Doesn't matter that I'm a woman. I'm competing against men. She put herself at a certain level and I will do this. And I really just got to respect that. That woman is badass.
Yeah, absolutely. Like it also kind of reminds me of like when Laird Hamilton was talking about post-surgery and like Gabby as well, where they don't really take like painkillers and things like that because they like let their bodies do the healing.
Feel it, yeah.
And so I feel like it's kind of that mind over matter thing. So it's like she was like, well, I'm going to fucking do it because it's like I feel prepared enough, and then just went after it.
But I actually do that in an emotional way as well. So if something's upset me or if something traumatic has happened in the family or to myself or something, it's giving myself a certain amount of time to heal. But then after that, you better let it go and move on. And I kind of see that, you know, similarity in her where she's like, I'm in pain, but I've got this deadline. I have to do it. I'm just going to do it. Like no excuses. She gave herself however many weeks to heal. And then she was up and doing it. Right. And I think that doing that also in an emotional way is very powerful.
Oh, it really is.
I'm going to feel sorry for myself for exactly 3 days. And then after those 3 days, you better get on to
doing stuff.
Exactly. Sort of looking and saying, oh my God, I'm hurt or I'm in pain or I'm upset. Or, I find that very powerful.
Yeah.
All right, Casey, let's hear it.
Laura DeFrame is asking, what are some action steps you take when fear is paralyzing your ability to make an important decision?
What's interesting is, so decision making.
Yeah.
In my personal life, I actually find it really hard to decide on things. Because I think it's because I'm taking into account other people's emotions, the people around you, the situation. I don't want to be too fussy, even though I'm really fussy. But that's why I almost like, I feel somewhat paralyzed. Like, oh, I really want this, but I don't want to upset that person. This person wants that. And then I have to take an emotion into consideration. When it comes to business, it's literally, is this going to hold the company back?
Right.
Right. I can't be weak and let my own fears hold the company back, hold my husband back, hold what we're trying to build back. So for me, it's like I don't give myself the option to let it paralyze me. But in my personal life, I do, because I'm worried about upsetting people. So I think, which is where we do the whole selfish desire thing. So what's your selfish desire? What's my selfish desire? And then trying to figure that out. But yeah, I don't let it paralyze me in the work.
Yeah. Can you repeat the question really quick?
Sure.
Actually, I think I digressed into decision-making versus fear, but...
What are some action steps you take when fear is paralyzing your ability to make an important decision?
Got it. Huh. Well, I mean, you could go like the completely silly route and like...
Is that the route you go?
So like, Sometimes.
Okay. Let's
Sometimes.
hear it.
Like I'll like just put like little, I'll like, okay, so I love Post-it notes. So I might like scribble down like what the different choices are, if you will, and then just like crumple them up and then just like toss them whatever, and then just like pick up whichever one like lands a certain way, or like just pick a random one, right? And then if I open it up and like I'm not happy with that decision, then I know that like my gut's telling me, okay, like this is what you actually want. Because then if like whatever it is, like if I open it up, I'm disappointed. Like let's say it's like
the toss of the coin, right?
Yeah, it's like the coin flip, except it's like now you also have taken away, like I didn't make this decision, but like now I get to. So it's like because you relinquished control for a moment and you were like, you let the universe, the wind, whatever, take over like that process, and then you were unsatisfied with it, then it's like, now it's like, okay, so what is the actual decision that I want to make?
So you're almost using that as a realization of your true deep emotions.
Yeah. So it's like,
that's cool.
Yeah. So it's like, it's kind of, it's for me, like now I've like really, really learned that like I love my gut, and like my gut is usually like right. Like anytime that I've like been like, oh, like maybe this isn't, and like it didn't feel right for me, like was probably not the best choice. Like going to law school. I value everything that I learned there, but it was like a definite like point where it was like, I definitely didn't listen to my gut, but I listened to the expectations of the people around me.
So putting yourself in that situation where your gut can speak for itself.
Yeah.
I actually do that with what I wear with Tom. So let's say I can't decide what to wear. I have this couple of outfits I'm not sure on. Do I go sexy? Do I go fun? Do I go cool? Like kind of not sure. I'll put on an outfit, I'll show Tom, and then I'll put on the other outfit and he'll say, oh, I really like that one. I almost then test myself like, oh, I didn't want to wear that. But then it goes, okay, well, I realized he didn't want to wear that, and then I'll wear the other outfit. Now, the funny thing is he looks at me, and he's in off camera. He looks at me, and he's like, why the hell did you ask me if you're not even going to listen to my... It's like, it's not that I actually am not going to listen. The fact that you gave me your answer allowed me to decide, trusting the gut feeling.
Yeah, because it's like you already knew what you wanted. Like,
situation.
you already knew what you wanted.
Yeah.
But, like, something is trying to tell you, like, maybe it'll be more pleasing to Lisa. Right. Like, if I do this particular thing. Right. But then it's like, no.
But then you realize, what is my goal? Yeah. Right? Because if my goal is to make sure that my husband thinks I look amazing, then I'm going to go with what he wanted me to wear. But if it's like, there's a certain feeling I want to get today. So, like, I want to feel tough. I want to feel cute, like, whatever that is. Yeah. Then you kind of then go off that gut emotion, Aren't there, like, nerves in the gut?
There are. They're like a bunch of neurons.
50 million? 50 million neurons in the gut.
Yeah.
So
it's like, and that's why there are a lot of links to like depression and stuff, because like I think it's mostly serotonin and dopamine down there.
Nice.
Yeah.
Chew.
Hashtag nerd life.
So this is a quote that I really liked.
Quote section?
Quote section. All right. So I actually printed it as well because I'm a very visual person. So beating yourself up over something that happened in the past isn't going to change it. Amelia Boone. What do you think about that?
Oh, that's like 1,000% correct.
But why do you think then people really do beat themselves up? Like, if everybody knows this, if everybody knows that when you beat yourself up, it's not going to change anything, why do you think we do it? Especially women, I think.
Because, I mean, part of it is, like, you get into a cycle. And, like, if you think of everything in a cycle, like, once you start down a path, like, you can create that snowball. So it's the same way. It's like, I'm already sad. Like, I'm going to watch a sad movie. And then it's like, I'm going to cry about it. And then I'm going to cry about something else. Like, where you start crying and then now you're thinking of other sad shit to cry about. Right. Like, I've also done that. But, like, in this way of, like, catharsis, where it's like, I know that I need this cry. Like, because I'm a big crier. Like, all my emotions are attached to my tear ducts. So, like, if I'm overjoyed and overwhelmed, like, I'm crying. If I'm frustrated, I'm crying. If I'm mad, I'm crying. Like, if I'm sad, I'm crying. Like, if I'm so happy and I'm, like, so in love and, like, like, excited, I'm probably crying. So, at the same time, it's like, you can get into those spirals where it's like, oh, like one negative thought's not going to hurt. And then like you start on another one and then another one. And it's like, oh, remember that time that someone in 3rd grade, like they called me this, and like now you've suddenly blown everything into this crazy thing. But in the same way that like if you were to stop and break that cycle and then start on a new snowball, you can kind of create a different positive effect. Like replacing the
But
thoughts.
that's the thing of like making sure that you stop that cycle.
Yeah.
Right? Because so many people, like you said, it starts off, I'm just going to watch a sad movie. I'm just going to bitch and moan to my friend about this one. I'm just going to do this one phone call and then I'm going to. But then it almost feeds into that feeling.
It does.
So yeah, she talks about that.
Yeah. And it's the same way with like a lot of people suffering with depression. It's like, it starts off as like, oh, like I'm feeling kind of lethargic. And then like you do all these other things that like start to create that like effect, and like suddenly you're fully paralyzed by it and you can't do anything. And so that's why it's like people talk about a lot about like breaking those cycles or breaking your routine in depression in order to help bring yourself back into the light.
Yeah, and one thing that Amelia does, which I really like, is she actually puts herself as like the third person. So almost taking yourself out and then looking at it, she tries to depersonalize it is what I believe she says. So it's kind of saying, okay, well, if my sister was, someone that you really care about, a female in your life or somebody in your life that you really care about, if they were doing this, what would I advise them? The first thing I would say is stop watching the sad movie, stop talking about the negative side of it, right? And then the people around you, have them speak positively. And I've done that in the past as well. Like if I'm going through a tough situation and I don't want pity. I don't want people to feel sorry for me or to be like, how are you feeling? Are you okay? Because what does that do? It reinforces that negative spiral that you're in.
Yeah. Like I have some people that like I'll even text and just be like, can you just say something nice to me today?
That's cool.
Like especially during law school when I was like really struggling with everything, I would be like, all right, listen, all I need for you to do today is like just send me nice shit randomly.
Right. But it's awesome that you're aware of that.
Yeah. And it's again that self-awareness and like learning a little bit about yourself as you keep learning and like finding these other tools that like help you through.
Yeah. That's a really powerful one.
Yeah.
Knowing what to do and asking people to.
Yeah, because it's like I was always really bad at asking for help sometimes, like when it comes to like emotional things.
Yeah.
So it's like now I always take a very like proactive approach.
Was there anything that you can remember that broke that? Like how did you go from one to the other?
I can't think of a particular instance, but it was definitely times when like I felt like I was struggling and alone. And then finally one day, like, you know, I randomly talked to someone at like 4 o'clock in the morning on like a college quad, like eating French fries and like realizing that like we're having the same experience. And so it's like, okay, so if I'm feeling this way and like on the outside I feel like, oh, she's so put together or seems put together, then it's like, okay, so that means that other people kind of need this service.
Right.
So it's like something that maybe I started doing for others sometimes.
Yeah.
And then it also was something that I was like, well, if I know that this helps them and like makes them feel good, then like maybe I can ask for it back.
That's cool.
And so it's like definitely something a lot of like my closest girlfriends we do, like sometimes where it's like they'll just send a text where it's like, I haven't heard from you in a long time. And it's like, everything okay? Yeah. Or it's like I'd send that same text where it's like, oh, like how's everything going? Because it's like you start to know someone's like patterns and things like that. And yeah, and then even within my own family.
All right, I think we've got another question.
We do.
Nice, let's do it.
Hey, Joe.
What's up, Joe?
It seems like Amelia was excelling in multiple fields, but she made the decision to go all in on obstacle racing. How do you decide what good things you sacrifice in order to pursue being great?
God, I love that question. At least for me, it really resonates because I love what we do here. I love what I do in my position. I love the company we're building. I love our goals. And it kind of comes down to, you know, the question I had to ask myself was like, I grew up thinking I was going to have children. Right? Greek Orthodox, you get married, you have kids. I remember...
It's even in the ceremony. I was just recently at one. I was like,
Yeah, I mean, I love my father to bits, but when I told him I wanted to go to film school, he's very kind of traditional in the maths, the history, the teacher,
that's like my
the
family
profession.
too.
And when I wanted to go into film school, he was like, no, there's no money in it. What are you going to do? Like, that's, and I was like hell-bent. And he turned around to me eventually and he was like, well, you're going to get married and have kids anyway, so it doesn't really matter, sure. That's how I ended up going to film school. He allowed me to go because he thought that I was eventually...
Oh, my God.
Now, I didn't take that personally because for me, I was like, awesome, I get what I want.
Right.
But it was ingrained in me and my culture that basically you're going to get married and have kids. So after being married, we're now going on our 15-year wedding anniversary. We've discussed it every year. And the truth has, every year that I've gotten older, I found myself more and more. And I found, God, I hate to say my calling because that almost sounds a little cheesy, but I found what I really am passionate about. And working towards that, I've really thought about the struggle between having a family, being a mother, having kids, and then being a professional. Yeah. And so really, I think it ultimately comes down to what is that final goal I'm trying to get to. Right. I know that I don't want to have kids and then have someone else bring them up. Right. So I was kind of almost breaking things down into like micro decisions. So it's like, I don't want to have a nanny just look after my children. If I'm going to have kids, I want to be the main person in their lives. So if I know that, then I know that, okay, well, this means that I would have to give up work at least for some period of time. Right. And then do I want to do that? Does that move me towards my bigger goal of creating impact? And then saying, okay, these are my two buckets and which one am I willing to sacrifice more? And that's at least how I've taken multiple things that I've wanted to do and kind of decided which ones to pursue.
Yeah, that totally makes sense. I feel like I'm still pretty like early in that like grand scheme of life decision making process, but like definitely even like on the micro level, choosing what to pursue. So like I played varsity sports all through high school, and then given the choice between also playing varsity volleyball and like playing club, like I chose club because at the time I was like, well, I just spent
being
the last...
British, I have no idea what that means.
So I was really good at sports. So I was really good at lacrosse and volleyball. Okay. So like this decision time came where I was like, do I want to pursue lacrosse or do I want to pursue volleyball? Like even in terms of, so I did like extra camps and practices and all that stuff for volleyball.
But there's only one you can...
So it's like, I mean, I did both of them for a while. In college, I was like, well, I could also try out for the varsity team there and spend another 4 years being a varsity athlete. And so that, that's a different time commitment. That's like a lot of different things. But like for me, when I was making that decision, I was like, well, I know that there are a lot of other passions I wanted to pursue, but because of like the time that I dedicated to athletics, I couldn't pursue them. So I was like, well, if I want to pursue maybe the arts, or if I want to like try something new, like I don't want to necessarily like have something get in the way of that. Right. So it was like, even in making that decision where I was like, well, I'll take the one that's like a lesser time commitment, but still fulfills like the fun and like team and camaraderie. And like eventually I was president and coach of that like team, and everything was just like figuring out what my goals are for those next 4 years, or what I wanted my next 4 years to look like. So like that journey of self-discovery and not having necessarily that team unit like automatically from day one was also integral to like my college experience.
So it seems very similar, having that big goal and then making small micro decisions along the way that take you there. Yeah. Nice. All right. Let's hear another one, Case.
We're on a roll with these questions. Anna.
What about the balance between work and leisure time? How do you know when it's time to rest a bit, or the goals that you set for yourself were actually way too high?
Oh, well, Amelia talks about rest. That's a big discussion between Tom and Amelia. And so, yeah, I mean, it's really, God,
it's
Can you repeat the question? I want to make sure that I actually...
What about the balance between work and leisure time? How do you know when it's time to rest, or the goals that you have set for yourself are actually way too high?
So I'm going to quote Lisa Nichols. She says, I don't seek balance, I seek harmony. Oh my God, I love it. When she said that, it so resonated with me because some people need balance in their life. They need equal amount of rest, equal amount of work time. Because that's how people. You're not one of those people? No, me either. But that's how they then kind of say, this is how I stay centered. This is how I keep my calm because I need a balance of both. I actually don't. So knowing that about myself, but I still seek harmony, right? So I will go hard in the gym. I will go hard at work. And once upon a time, I used to feel guilty about resting, right? Like if I'm just sitting there watching The Real Housewives of Orange County, Beverly Hills. What up, Lily? My sister's obsessed with it as well. But, right, like using that time saying, I'm not learning anything. It is pure guilty pleasure of why I'm watching the show, but it's okay. And allowing yourself those kind of things in your own mind about like, is this something that I need to help me move forward? And the truth is, yes, sitting down for me and watching mindless television is exactly what I need to then hit the gym hard the next day, to hit work hard. But it's not balanced. It's, an hour of watching mindless television versus 12, 13 hours of hard work. And knowing myself and knowing when I need to.
Yeah, that self-awareness thing and like balance doesn't necessarily exist, but like it's been a trial and error thing for me. Yes, because like Amelia said, like you can push yourself, and like I have pushed myself, and like sometimes to the point where it's like, all right, you actually need to slow down because your body is shutting down. Like you are shutting down. And so it's like, now it's like because I've done it enough times, like I can just be like, all right, well, I need to do something, whether it's like, I need to fulfill more social